Hello, and be welcome to the world of darkness. Long ago was it that the sin of Cain spawned the cursed horror that stalks the street at night in search of living blood. The kindred have long been a secret influence through all ages of human history, plotting against one another in a never-ending jihad. Their immortal progeny are among us to this day, hidden from the eyes of humanity by an elaborate masquerade.
To set the scene, as you awaken your haven to the loud sounds of clatter, you can feel the disturbed slither of one of your snakes which writhes from on top of you, crossing over your belly and chest, coiling itself about your head as it flicks its tongue at the window shutters, which on the other side of, you can hear the cacophonous sound of mortals screaming, shouting, the occasional blow of whistles from police officers. No doubt Scotland Yard's finest out there. Madness seems to have not only consumed you by the blood, but consumed the very air around you as you wait.
Well, which snake is it? Is it the rattlesnake, is it the cobra, or is it the garden snake?
Oh, it's the cobra.
Oh boy. Where's the cobra on me?
As I said, it has somewhat wrapped its midsection around over your neck, the top of it perched above your head, almost in a very Egyptianite fashion, whereas its lower tail is still slithering up your body between your breasts.
Considering the cobra is out of the box, it's not gonna go too well. But time to enact the plan. Because I'm assuming, just a little bit of assumption here, that since my cobra is out of its cage, that means that there's somebody in my house. So here's what I'm gonna do. I am going to I'm gonna stay still in the bed, and then immediately after I find a lull in the situation, I'm gonna I'm gonna reach up really fast and grab the cobra by its head and lift the head up so it can't bite me.
Go ahead and roll your dex and athletics. As you thrust up your hand for the serpent, you just narrowly manage to catch it about the throat, though it very quickly wriggles free, sliding out of your hand, and then down over your head and chest, slithering down to the end of the bed.
I will sit up, arms behind my back, looking around, scanning the room, listening to the sounds outside, and flicking my attention back to the cobra.
You notice as you look about your room that papers are scattered, books are tossed haphazardly, the curtains are fallen onto the floor. It looks like a whirlwind has run through your room. Though you remain undisturbed, you can see the garden snake slithering underneath your bed. No sign of the third, suggesting all three are probably loose. And what's more concerning is your man, your retainer, your butler, your confidant of many years, is unconscious beneath the window.
Oh boy. Well, with that all said and done, Oh, God. What do I do? What do I do? Ooh, I could grab the cobra. I could definitely do that. Yeah, that's probably the most dangerous one right now. Sitting up, I will drag my legs up closer to me, so it's a nice cross-legged, in a nice cross-legged fashion. As I slowly but surely slide out of bed, it will be making my way to the snake. The big ol' scary cobra snake.
No sooner do you turn to step out of the bed and your feet reaching the cold boards of the floor, the snake slithering off the edge of the foot of the bed to the floor below, pooling in a large circle. You can hear it hiss angrily, as though it is aware before happening, as you watch the bed behind you lift, levitating in the air, before dropping itself onto the ground. The shutters clattering on their own volition against the windows, as outside the noises of the shouting crowd and mobs, the flicker of firelight beyond the windows is intermediary, getting louder and softer with the clattering and opening and close of the shutters. As you see now, moving upward through the boards of the floor, a sight of which does not excite you. Within his astral form, flowing robes, long white hair, and a horrid beard completing the image of the ghostly, translucent figure, is your sire.
Oh, so I haven't been broken into yet.
There is no protections that could keep me out. You should know this by now, Elizabeth. You have been very neglectful in your obligations to me.
What are you talking about? I've been doing everything I can.
I have received no secrets from this order of yours, or of the Golden Dawn. I have been forced to do all as my own. If not for my incredible skill, I might be testy. So you make me contemplate what need I have of you, child. I have tolerated your unruliness for quite some time.
Oh, that. Right. Here's the thing. I've been a little busy dealing with...
His voice projects outward. I have no patience for your excuses. You serve the greatest wizard that has ever lived, and yet you folly in such a way.
Well, considering the Setites are back on the prowl, I suppose it is somewhat necessary.
What danger do these snakes pose? They are dust beneath my fingertips. I care not for their activity.
It's more so danger to every kindred in the East End.
I am unconcerned with any of them. Very few have any substance or worth to their person. There are only a select number of kindred in this entirety of the British Isles with whom I concern myself as potential protégés. You are squandering the opportunity I have given you.
Well, what if I told you that in my expedition searching for any Setite remnants, I managed to join the Freemasons?
The Freemason. Ritualized tomfoolery. They care not for the occult, they care for secular powers. Their rituals, their secret orders, none of it is based in arcana. He pauses suddenly, thrusting out his hand. You move as though made of feathers into his grasp, which is impressive as he is in fact in an astral form, yet feels as though he is in fact holding you suspended in the air by his hand. You have bound yourself to another.
It was reasonable decision considering the circumstances of what I might stand to gain.
He releases you. Your feet striking the floor, you stagger for a moment. You hear the snake hiss loudly as it slithers between your legs, scurrying away at the sudden reappearance of you in its line of sight. You have 2 nights to prove your words. I will come collect you, so that you may no longer dawdle beyond the walls of the Sanctum Sanctorum, and assume the proper mantle of my apprentice.
If you insist.
You treat it as though it is such a burden to serve so great a magus as I. Do not think that your petty plays with these Tremere or even the Setites will keep you from me should I come for you. I will dash them aside like wind on wheat. To illustrate his point, he flicks his finger, sending your bed, frame and all, sliding across the ground, grinding on the wood, scuffing it violently before it lifts, smashing through the windows. Outside, you can hear the startled screams of several people as it goes crashing into their midst. By the time you look back, you can see him levitating upwards and backwards until he parts from the walls. You have 2 nights. The garden snake, which was hidden under your bed, has now coiled around your right ankle. It seems to be using you as shelter.
Oh, my babies. Very well. It shall be done. I'll get you information from not only the Freemasons, but also the Golden Dawn and the Weeping Moon. And whatever else I manage to find.
Now, without your shutters, or in fact the entirety of your window, you can see plainly outside that the sound of the commotion is that of a large-scale riot occupying the streets of Whitechapel. Mobs with torches and many an improvised weapon moving through the streets, calling out for Jews or the Ripper. They'll put an end to him if Scotland Yard are such milksops. You have a feeling this evening is going to prove to be anything but useful or productive.
Alright. Well, as Mr. Mellon, the Melon, does in fact leave, I will be immediately going over to Nathaniel and picking him up, or at least trying to pick him up. Whoops.
As you clasp onto your man, you heave immediately to feel your arms go straight and tug at his clothing rather rudely. Though he doesn't budge so much as an inch.
All right. Well, Next order of business, I'm going to open up one of his eyes. And I'm going to look into it. How fucked is he? How fucked up is he?
As you open his eye to look at it, it's a bit bloodshot. But he seems to be... Well, they're not glazed over, so that's progress.
I'm going to look into his eye and say, "Wake up."
Manipulation and intimidation. Be it that he's not conscious, or be it that in his unconscious state his mind is strangely barred to you, you are unable to feel the give of his will beneath the exertion of your own. And thus he remains, well, on the floor. So as you hold his eye, he does blink. And he starts blinking more. His eye red and itchy from having been exposed to the air for a few moments. He begins to sit up of his own accord.
Oh, thank heavens you're not dead. Ah.
My sincerest apologies, my lady. He looks up to the window and immediately staggers back, his back striking the wall as he examines the damage, as well as the snake on the floor. Is all well? Did they break in? There was a riot outside in the streets.
First, I thought they broke in. However, it turns out it just was my recusant sire.
I had initially come to sit by your bedside, my lady, in an effort to ensure that any intruders that potentially made it in would not disturb you before the fall of the sun.
Oh, Nathaniel, you are such a good friend. This is going to be a bit of a weird question, but my father wouldn't happen to have anything on the Golden Dawn or Weeping Moon, would he?
Not to my knowledge, my lady.
What about the Freemasons?
He was interested, but could never be admitted into their ranks.
Of course. Must do everything myself. As my father was such a wonderfully useless fool. Oh. Alright. I'd say prepare the carriage, but I don't think we're going to be getting around that crowd. She says, leaning over and looking out the shattered window.
Not to mention the numerous people carrying burning torches. Doesn't endear you to the idea of walking in their crowd.
They've been screaming about hunting for Jews, correct?
Jews, the Ripper. Again, going off of the assumption that the Ripper is in fact a Jew.
Nathaniel, you don't look Jewish, do you?
Of course not, my lady. I am a good Anglican.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Get yourself prepared in some decent garb. Not too decent, no. We don't want to stir the crowd, and I will dress like a common wastrel, and together we can march off for the Golden Dawn's place of residence.
What of your rendezvous with the Lady Rebecca?
Oh, yes, that would be a good idea. I think we should meet her as well. But before we go to the Golden Dawn's place, perhaps she can help gather some extra information. I'm sure she will be happy to know that somehow my sire managed to find out about what we were doing.
He is an intrusive presence upon your life, lady. If it were possible, I would attempt to stop it. Sadly, I am powerless before him.
If you keep up all the good work that you've been doing, you might not be powerless for much longer. She'll give him a nice pat on the shoulder.
You see, he grimaces at that. I think it for the best, my lady, that not come to pass.
Are you sure? You're already a mortal, I mean.
Pausing, he looks outside of the window at the angry, violent horde of mortals. I cannot deny that I have never considered it, Lady Grey. However, I have lived my life. I have loved and known love. I am an old man. There is nothing else for me. And in truth, I don't believe that I could enjoy an eternity without some end. I will serve you faithfully for as long as you will have. But I am unbefit of the gift you offer. My sincere apology.
Oh, don't talk such rot. You're more than fit. You've been by my side for 46 years, I believe it's been. Not including the time before I went off to Germany. You've done everything I've asked and more. You've made sure everything has gone to plan, and when things have not gone to plan, you found a way to improvise or work around it. You are
In a surprising show of force, he puts a hand out towards you. My Lady Grey, I implore you respect me in this, as I have always respected you and your family. I have and will serve loyally, always. But I have no wish to live forever, and I have no wish to delay, though I will not rush towards it, my inevitable end, where I might rejoin many of those friends I've lost. I am not fit for eternity, for even with the limited time I have had, I have made the best of it, and am content with the life and regrets I have. He then looks down, ashamed of having spoken up against you.
She'll place both her hands on his shoulders, give one of them a pat with her left hand. Very well. It's a shame. But I will respect your wishes. Though I do hope to be able to change your mind at some point.
He shakes his head. You shall not, my lady, but I trust you will find a more suitable companion.
Well, with that being said, I suppose we should probably wrangle the snakes.
Leave it to me, my lady. I have become fairly well acquainted with the scaly children you keep in my time feeding them. You prepare yourself to meet with your rendezvous. I will wrangle the serpents. At least one of them seems to have behaved.
Thank you. she'll say as she stands up, goes to her wardrobe and starts digging through it for the cheapest dress she has in there. Eventually finding it, she'll pull it out, gather her cheapest pair of shoes, cheapest hat and veil, and go to another room to change. She's gonna rough up her hair a little bit, be a lot less careful than usual when putting on the dress, but it's still going to very pristinely place the hat and veil on her head, very ever so slightly off kilter, to create a bit of a more dynamic look. Oh, and of course she brought the cane with her, because that cane does not leave her side. It's going to make her stand out a little bit, but she can't bring herself to part with it. Just like her snakes, that's her baby. She'll just have to hide it. Slightly. Being all dressed up, I'm going to go downstairs and wait for Nathaniel, making sure that I close every single curtain in the house. And also make sure all the doors and windows are locked. Probably not going to stop a brick, but hopefully it'll deter the less ready to wreak havoc.
As you finish preparing yourself, not quite the usual fare that you would embellish yourself with, you nevertheless rejoin your ghoul. You see that he has collected a revolver. 6 shots, nothing special. Though putting it in a holster under his jacket, he buttons it up only about to the mid-chest so he can still access it readily, standing at the door waiting for you. His clothes similarly, old jacket, pants, a flat cap on his head that has a couple of patches in it. He looks much more of the lower crowd than typical, with much reason for it, no doubt.
Should I roll courage, considering I have a phobia of guns?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Though you brace yourself in a sudden stiffening of your limbs at its sight, you are reassured both that this is in fact your ghoul, your man, and someone who has been with you, as you yourself illustrated, for many, many years. You put a great deal of confidence in him. Thus, that weapon, despite your displeasure, is not one you need think of too harshly, too long. Though it does sit in the back of your mind that it is there. You see Nathaniel looking at you as he pauses. Should we go out the back, my lady?
I think that would be for the best.
He nods, stopping to look at the front door once more before taking one of the chairs and pressing it up against the door, just in the event of somebody trying to break in. He then moves to join you for the back door.
Alright, with that, I will turn the knob on the door and push it open. Take a look out the right, and then move up to the door a little bit, peek around it, and look to the left. I'm gonna want to stay in the back alleys, but not too many of the back alleys to get jumped by some people, though I have no doubts that I could probably ruin their day. Yeah, you know. And on the way to what's the name of the inn? The something Bull?
The Bull's Inn.
The Bull's Inn, okay. On the way to the Bull's Inn, I think I'm gonna try and grab a snack.
Are you trying to move stealthily through the alleys or just quickly?
Well, considering I am a woman, and neither Nathaniel nor I look Jewish, I don't think I need to obfuscate or be very stealthy about it. And considering I'm staying close to the main road, but also, like, somewhere in the alleys, like, basically one road over from the main road is what I'm going for here.
Sadly, the Bull's Inn is on the main road.
And, yeah, but, like, on the way there, I'm going to be, dodging in between. But when, I'll be ducking into the bull's inn after that.
Fair enough. Go ahead and... no need to roll, considering you're not really hiding yourself or anything of the sort. You press through the alley, walking quickly enough to make good time, yet not at quite a jog or anything even of the sort. Nathaniel moves behind you, his hand occasionally moving up to his breast, where he lingers with his fingers for the revolver anytime a crowd seems to get particularly loud or violent. You can hear the blow of more police whistles, a break of glass somewhere, dogs barking violently. It's an unpleasant sight, to say the least. And the sky is completely clear, which you ought to imagine on most nights is a wonderful thing. The brightness and vibrancy of the moon and stars, yet now you see it somewhat clogged by smoke of the burning torches, possibly even a building somewhere.
Oh, God.
And there is this orange haze that clings to the edges of the sky over the tops of each of the houses. You manage to make about a block's distance when you see a group of men, about 5 in number, moving into the alley about 10 feet ahead of you. 2 of them bear torches standing on either side. One holding a scatter gun, out of character, effectively an old-timey shotgun. And 2 others holding makeshift weapons, what looks like a sturdy club with a metallic ball on the top, and the other one just a plain board of wood. Roll your courage, because you don't like guns! Especially shotguns!
So many guns! I will be wincing up to Nathaniel, holding his arm like a child, closing my eyes and making sure he's guiding me. Also, hopefully it'll deter anyone from thinking that on the off chance you might be the Ripper.
Crossing over his chest with his left hand, he pats your arm before putting the other hand around you to guide you forward towards the men. As you get closer to them, all 5 seem at once to focus on you. The one with the shotgun hefting it onto his shoulder, the 2 men with torches holding out their flames to better see you in the dark dimness of the alley. You can hear rats scurry by the dozen away from the light and away from you as they move past you down deeper into the alleys behind you. The other men watch, save for the one with the makeshift club of whatever description, who continues to bang on doors and fences, seeing if he can scare anyone out. Sadly, you're going to have to roll self-control, because the beast also doesn't like fire. And you're getting really close to 2 fires.
Fuck!
Don't worry, Alden is also in Whitechapel.
Alden! Hey, bud! Okay.
You retain your self-control as the beast inside of you leers at the flames, wanting either to snuff them out or snuff out the holders, or better yet, just leave their presence entirely. The man with the shotgun, who doesn't appear to be exactly angry or violent, holds up his free hand. Boy, right there. Where are you 2 going? Nathaniel looks to you, looking for permission to speak.
She'll give a nod. Still closing her eyes, still fearful.
The men seem to take note of this. In fact, one of them actually, seeing your reaction and your demeanor, actually moves his torch a little further away from you, which you're kind of grateful for. Nathaniel speaks up. We're just trying to move through to the main street. We're going to see a doctor there. She needs her iron tablets. The man holding the shotgun nods. And you haven't seen any of the damn Jews, have you? We're rooting out this Ripper fellow now before he does any more harm. No, not at all. You wouldn't be lying now, would you? Sir, this is none of my concern. My concern is right here in my arms, and if that Ripper bastard wants to put harm to it, I'll shoot him myself. The man seems to take a step forward as Nathaniel stares him down. Leave us be, sir. Going straight back, the man holding the shotgun just throws a hand up. Hey, get on with your business and get out of here. And if you find that bastard Hollow. With that, he moves away, looking off to the next bunch of houses, even tapping the butt of his shotgun against one of the doors. The men with the torches walk away. The one who has seemed to notice your somewhat intimidated demeanor, even giving you a polite nod of his head before fucking off.
Ah, the beauty of being a woman in Whitechapel during Jack the Ripper.
I mean, yeah, there's only 3 ways it could go. Getting killed, getting fucked, or getting sympathy.
Exactly. And ain't no Ripper killing me. At least I hope.
Nevertheless, Nathaniel guides you past the men. Once again, roll your self-control, both due to the presence of the torches, the moment of which you're crossing from alley to alley. There's a hell of a crowd. A lot of angry people, a lot of torches, and they still a fucker with a shotgun really near to you. As you stand in the middle of a narrow road, the torches of the people around you, they're shouting, clamoring, stirring up not only your volatile state, but the bobbing of flames constantly near. You are fully aware that your clothes are very flammable, and the beast cannot be in this presence any longer. Finally, the bastard with the shotgun blasts a shot off into the air. With a violent hiss, you shove away Nathaniel and dart into the alley ahead, rushing as quickly as you can proceed. You tear through in a violent panic, desperate to escape the flames. Yet now you seem to be hyper-aware of them. The glow of the flames on the other sides of the building, peeking them through the alleys, the shouting of anger. It's all around you, consuming. You run. Go ahead and roll your willpower really quickly. As a man in one of the alleys is moving through, a lantern in one hand, pistol in the other, your immediate reaction is to run away, to move out away from both flame and weapon. And yet another part of you desires to attack him, to snuff out the threat. In that split moment of hesitancy, you have just enough purchase over the beast that you can attempt to direct its action to flight or fight. If you want to direct the beast not to kill the fucker, that is a temporary willpower.
Oh, fuck. How alone is he?
Completely.
Completely alone? Is there a chance that somebody else is going to come flying around the corner?
Considering what's going on in Whitechapel? Do I need to answer that?
Yup. Oh. Yup. Spending that temporary willpower. Let's go.
No sooner does the man turn to see you, does he see just you rush past him. He steps back, startled. Oh, you crazy bird! You're gone before he has so much time as to flash the light on your backside. As you move across one street into yet another alley, roll your willpower.
Son of a bitch. Well, it's been nice knowing you, folks.
As you are moving through the alleys, in a blind panic attempting to escape the flames, you manage to momentarily gain purchase. The beast confused by where to run as you find yourself staring at a brick wall of one of the continuous mounds of identical housing. The flames of the crowd on either side, the angry shouts, the banging, clattering, and shattering of glass. You see, in watching, head slumped, hands at his side, staring at the crowd vacantly without reaction. Though you can't quite make out his face, you identify him immediately.
Oh, it's been nice knowing you. Can I try and roll self-control to not do whatever the fuck I'm about to do?
You may.
Okay.
Grappling with the beast, you cease your attempted blind flight into the crowd away from this monster. This ancient, which is more dangerous than any torch flame. So much so that you actually managed to regain autonomy over your body. The beast howling still in your mind. A momentary fog in your thoughts. You realize you need to hide. He cannot see you. From the rumors of what's going on, he is not in the best of moods of late. The last thing you need to be is something he takes it out on.
I'm gonna move up against the wall and obfuscate.
It's a wise thing you do. For looking back towards where you were, he seems to pause, his eyes very vacantly examining the surroundings. He then walks off into the crowd. It almost as though both completely aware and unaware that they do it, the crowd parts around him, like Moses parting the Red Sea, and before closing back behind him as he vanishes. No idea where Nathaniel is or if he's been able to keep up with you. You see that you're not actually very far away from the Bull's Inn, though you did overshoot it a bit. And see, as you wake this evening, it is, as the evening before, very quiet, save for the drip and occasional motion of water. The sewers beneath Whitechapel are a very busy and occupied place, though you found a corner in which the waters don't reach, and there's some planks of wood laid out solidly enough that you're able to lay and sleep. It's quite nice. It's quite quiet. And there is an abundance of rodents, of course. Not far away from you, you have a lantern, which you can light with a single candle if needed. And some of the bricks shift beneath you a little bit. Some of the ones that have come loose as you stir.
Alden awakening would kind of try and weave his way through the rubbish that he's covered himself with. And with the sewers in Whitechapel, there are ladders that would lead up to, like, the opening, right?
Sporadically spaced.
Okay. Alden would come to the closest one and kind of press his face up against the opening to look at the outside.
Well, as you rise and move through the sewers, the occasional splashing of water where you have to trudge through it. Give me a wits and alertness really quick. You hear, though it echoes throughout the tunnel of which you are in, rebounds into those adjacent and connecting, the loud screeching.
Using Auspex, Alden would try and get an idea of what that thing is.
Heightening your senses, you pause as you can hear the clacking sound. It sounds very much like hooves on or claws on the stones sporadically spread throughout the sewers. The occasional splash of water and grunting.
Alden would use the power of obfuscate to hide himself and slowly edge his way closer.
I will ask you to give me a wits and alertness as you try to, with your heightened senses, more or less echolocate, try to find the origin of these sounds. Trudging through the waters, causing the occasional splash and ripple to move throughout, you proceed after the sounds of hooves. You can hear more of them. And another loud as you close in to the source. Peeking around the edge, you're somewhat surprised by what you see as in the refuse of, you're not even entirely sure what, though. There is two large hogs gnawing at the refuse for sustenance.
Sorry, when you say refuse, what are you referring to?
Trash, dead fish, just pretty much garbage.
Although Alden is in obfuscate, he would give a sniff as he creeps. Alden would try to get behind the hog and start feeding from it. Although it doesn't look like it. One of the clan's ghouls, no?
It's a big pig underground in the sewers, so that's weird, but other than that, no.
So it seems other than quite normal, not ghoul-like.
Yes, and there's two of them.
How close are they to each other?
Fairly close. Maybe if you were to spread your hand out between them, there'd be about that much distance.
In that case, would it be possible to go in between the two and grab them into his side, so that when he feeds from the other, well, when he feeds from one, the other doesn't run away?
Make a strength and brawl. Naturally, add your potence. As you suddenly appear, it's not until your hands are no, not even then. It's only once you firmly grasp the thick thistle fur and some of the bunching of the back, you wrench one of the hogs off its front hooves to the side. Immediately, it starts thrashing. The other one jerking its head up, swinging, looking for the source of what's grabbed it. You sink your fangs into the back of its head. Immediately, its entire body locks up and then shudders as it starts producing low whines as you consume the mouthfuls upon mouthfuls of hog blood. It has a very strange taste to it. Though warm and satisfying, it doesn't carry quite the same punch as human blood. And furthermore, it has a very distinctive taste. A slight sourness with a strong aftertaste of copper, kind of like sucking on a penny. Once the first hog is deceased, devoid of blood, and dropped to the water, you are able to see what it was they were gnawing at. It is mostly trash and old dead fish, but there's also what looks to be several days old corpse, with a pail beside it, with a sort of wire mesh in the bottom of it. The hog that you have just dropped on one of its tusks having a glint of something catching the light, as the other one in your left hand continues to thrash wildly in terror at the predator which has caught wind of it.
Alden would also feed from that hog.
Sinking your fangs into its flesh, it's very much rinse and repeat. They haven't the strength to compete with you. You drain them easily before allowing their bodies to splash into the water.
Alden stays silent for a second after he returns back up, kind of looking down at his feet and just thinking. Out of character, where was it that Harker and Rebecca were said to be meeting?
As you would have overheard, the zoo in Hyde Park. Not Hyde Park,
Regents?
I believe so, but I'm yes, Regents Park.
Okay. From the tunnels, would Alden know which the best route to take would be?
Vaguely. You have a bit more awareness of the tunnels than most. Not to mention, the sewers are the domain of your kin. Quite a safe journey, all in all.
Alden would take the route he's most used to, or would be the quickest.
As you press through the tunnels, making fairly good time, you choose to cross from the sewers of Whitechapel to one of the underground metro lines, crossing it into one of the warrens and making reasonable time, though you have had to take moments to second guess and reconsider your path. What's more interesting, in fact, is that occasionally you do hear in the sewers, though they become more distant as you press northward, more hogs Something to make note of for when hunting in the East End. You pause as you find yourself utterly turned around. In fact, you're not even sure where you are at the moment. You're in one of the sewers, though it looks practically identical to everything else you've seen. The occasional makeshift, almost gangplanks, you could call them, of the underground of London, the brick cobbled walls. I find it suddenly very difficult to recall where it is you are.
Nearby, would I be able to find one of those exit points where you can kind of look out?
Yes. You can see, thanks to your heightened senses, the faint stream of light that seems to peek in, as well as the smell of the fresh air. You move towards, stopping there at the splash of the water around your ankles.
Alden would, obfuscated, slowly approach it and stay completely silent to listen and watch.
What's an alertness? You haven't the foggiest idea where the hell you are.
Are these one of the, keep forgetting what they're called, those like circle things?
What?
I keep forgetting what they're called. You know those circle things you can open that lead to the sewer?
Manholes?
Yeah. Is it like that? A manhole?
Yes, it's somewhat dislodged, hence why a bit of light is streaming from above, which means gaslight. Means you're not, off in Limehouse or Bentham Green. You're at least somewhere still near central London.
Would I be able to see anything around the manhole?
So you're going to climb up and see if you can peek out a little bit?
Yeah.
Give me a wits and alertness really quick. At the top of the ladder, the wood creaking under your weight a little bit, you peek out through the slight shift of the cover of the manhole. You see horses and people wearing fine clothes. Yet as you look around, you see a sign for Bloomsbury Square Garden. Seems you're not far from the British Museum, actually. You'd say you're probably somewhere on Southampton Row, but where along the line, you're not sure.
Would I seem to know some sort of route now, or would I have to leave?
You have a better idea of what route to take.
Okay. Would I see anyone who sticks out while I'm on the ground?
I mean, there's a few people in nice dress. One or two that are in carriage going by. As far as what sticks out, that depends on what you define as sticking out.
Would I see anyone I recognize?
No.
Okay. Alden would spend a moment more just being silent, listening quietly, before letting himself lower down and start to take a new route.
Whitson Street. You're having a damnable time getting around. A damnable time at that. A few rats scurry past you as you move into one of the warrens of the Nosferatu. You actually do find a telegraph machine. The little clicker set on a rough piece of stone that's been chiseled out of the wall, which is fairly smooth at that. Moving back into place the false wall behind you, which is made up namely of wood with several bricks attached to the front facade. The beams on the back of it allowing you to shift it into place. No mortal strong enough to move this with ease. You find that you are in the warrens, which much rougher stone and a bit more narrow, but over the centuries it has been cleaned up more than enough to make for somewhat comfortable walking. In fact, you can even see some scuff marks from one member of your clan or another who might have even been walking around with a cane down here.
Alden would kind of hold his trench coat, kind of adjusting it, fixing it up. Just at the thought of that. Then, after taking a quick look around, he would continue.
As you begin to move towards one of the tunnels, at your left, appearing with a inclination of his head and a slight bow, one of your clanmates greets you. One you're happy to see, in fact. Bernard, also known among your clan as the Minotaur of London.
Alden, although considering his monstrosity might be hard to see, would give a smile, kind of adjusting his top hat as he does so, and would say, "Ah, if it's not the Minotaur."
He pauses at that and rubs at his chest. Yes, the Minotaur of London. I haven't heard that one before. Good to see you too, Alden. Such manners. Going northward again.
He would chuckle before saying, "Yep, as always, just exactly where I'm headed."
He wags one of his long fingers. No? You're not headed to Islington. I would have expected you to head to Islington.
He would give off a sigh, saying, "Yeah, recently I've been busy. The Seneschal has requested my help."
Involved in Whitechapel. He wrings his hands together, his fingers interlacing and wrapping before releasing. Quite long are they, so long that when they interlock, the tips of his fingers touch just past his wrists on either hand.
Alden would mention Bernard. While I was on the way here, there were quite a few hogs. Is it just this kind of time of year where they come on here?
Streaming his fingers over his face, he shakes his head. Hogs. Yes, there have been many hogs under the East End. They've even begun speaking of it above. Not that I would know, I don't like going there. He taps one long nail against his exposed fangs, providing a slight ticking sound that you can hear with your heightened senses. He then shakes his head. Yes, there are many hogs underneath Whitechapel and other parts of the East End. I hear as far north as Spitfields. Charles, Mr. Fryer, said he even encountered one under the city of London. Fancy that, finding a pink under the city, not even wearing a suit.
Would, removing his top hat, let it kind of hang by his side while he holds it with his right hand, almost like he's leaving. He's apart now since he's with his own kind. And he would say, do you think there's any particular reason?
I don't know. They have made hunting underground a bit easier. Though if they would move a bit further to the west, better. Then we might have a bit more opportunity for fresh pork, rather than just long pork. He waves a hand. But I don't know. I haven't gone to the East End lately. No desire to run into Prince Fangen.
Alden would almost scoff at that, saying how, yeah, I was unfortunate enough to run into his little kid slaves.
His little pack of ghouls. Yes. What are they? The street Turks. I was speaking with Violet long ago. She too finds it very distasteful.
Kind of tapping his chin with his left hand. He says, and considering how many there are, I just don't like to think about it. It's quite terrible, isn't it?
Yes. It's better to be left as it is, then. No point in involving oneself with that drudgery. You're still occupied, aren't you? Dealing with the nonsense down there, the river. More's the pity.
Alden would nod, now placing his top hat back onto his head, saying, "Ah, yes. Many secrets, many secrets." It's still hard to believe that he...
I am surprised you did not encounter Violet on your way here. She was just going down to see her young ward, the caitiff ward.
His eyes, well, yes, they would kind of widen, his eyebrows raising. That's if any eyebrows remain. And he would say, sorry, can you repeat that again?
You didn't know? Violet is... She finds Haversham's treatment of his so-called children very distasteful, and has a young ward, a caitiff by the name of Wart. Excellent thief, I'm told. She does look out for him, so... Heavens forbid Havisham should ever lay a hand on Wart's head. I can't imagine what she would be motivated to do.
Just double checking, Havisham is referring to Prince Fangen, yeah?
Yes, by his real name, Haversham.
Alden would kind of rub the side of his face for a second, saying, Oh. That surprises me. I've heard that Wart supposedly kills children. Well, being one of us, not only do we find correct information, but sometimes misinformation.
Exactly. It is all so bothersome involving oneself with the machinations of the above. I prefer it down here within the walls. Lest we get some intruder. Don't like intruders. We had an intruder not long ago. Though that was in Shadwell. I happened to come across them as I was going to Limehouse.
Who did they happen to be?
He shrugs his shoulders and waves away his right hand. Some vagrant. I don't recognize them. I don't believe they're of London, but if they are, then they made a foul mistake coming here. I gave them a solid barking and sent them on their way. Their fangs removed as payment for intruding on our underground.
Alden would chuckle and, tap him on his shoulder, saying, at least they've been dealt with.
Certainly they have, certainly they have. You really should put this business you have in the East End to rest. Rejoin the others in Islington. They need your assistance. Much more than the ladies of the night at Whitechapel. It's a seedy part of town, would make for great domain for the clan, but alas, here we are.
Alden.
Thank you, Alden, for entertaining me in conversation. I haven't had much good conversation lately.
Alden would say, if I'm to be frank, and then he would point upwards. Up there's no real good conversation. Just investigating. Every now and then you do one of the fellow clan members, which is enjoyable. But it's been a while.
A long while. I haven't... Pardon my indulgence. I haven't had much conversation of late. And I haven't been above in a little over a decade. I have no reason to go above. I like it down here. He runs a hand over one of the smooth walls. Above is too loud, too crowded, too... He shudders, clutching himself with both arms. He looks for a moment like a frightened child.
Alden would step forward, placing an arm on him to comfort him.
He looks at you for a long moment. At first with surprise, then with scrutiny, and then he pulls away. Good evening to you, Alden. I apologize for my indulgences. I like thinking of things up there. Too painful. Allow me to know if you need any assistance getting there. Communicate by the wire. He taps the stone where the telegraph is. I will be sure to answer. And if not I, perhaps one of the others. Good evening. He quickly shuffles away from you, clearly bothered by you having seen him in a moment of weakness.
By any chance, before he would have been able to slip away, would Alden been able to...
What?
Before he would have, slipped away, would Alden have been able to kind of grab him for a second to say one more thing?
Easily enough.
Okay. In that case, he would have either grabbed his wrist, his forearm, something like that. And as Bernard turns round, he would have said, "Thank you for always being here. And for next time, there's no reason to apologize. We're all in the same boat." And then would kind of holding the edge of his hat, give a slight bow of the head.
You're not sure if he's upset by what you said, or bashful, or apathetic entirely. You don't believe you said anything wrong, or it's very hard to tell why it is. But no sooner do you let him go and offer him a polite bow, he vanishes just before your eyes.
Alden kind of just stands there for a second, fixing himself up, adjusting his trench coat, his top hat, kind of tapping his chest for a second, kind of, get the blood pumping, get him back in motion. Then he would just let out a sigh before starting to continue his destination.
It's not a far trek from where you are now. You eventually depart on the tracks of the Euston Tube Station, following the tracks northward along the edges of Regent's Park, before eventually stepping off of them and climbing the faint hill to the park village, and from there following towards the park. End scene.
Parked in the back of the Bull's Inn in Whitechapel. Within her carriage, Rebecca finds that she sits across from Rebecca Gray of her clan, of Clan Tremere. Her purse in hand, walking cane at her side. Slim, short thing. She offers Rebecca a polite smile as the doors closed behind her.
As Rebecca moves into the carriage, a slight look of surprise in her face, before slowly lowering herself into her seat across from Rebecca Gray. "Miss Gray, to what do I owe this unexpected pleasure? Is there something I may help you with?"
Perhaps. But before we get to discussing that, she motions over Rebecca's shoulder. Do have your man begin driving.
Is there a particular destination in mind?
She ruminates on this question for a moment, her eyes seeming to shift about the interior of the carriage once or twice before looking back. The British Museum. You can leave me there.
Rebecca gives a polite nod, turning to her man, opening the panel on the carriage which separates them. "Mr. Kalan, the British Museum, please."
As you wish, my lady. Before long, the horse's hooves can be heard as he begins making his way towards the British Museum, leaving the East End behind as the carriage shimmies a little bit. Not by their own action, but by the motion of the carriage which causes their bodies to sway here and there. Rebecca Gray begins to speak, addressing the matter for which she seems to have intruded upon your carriage. My apologies for the intrusion, but when I saw that you were here, I couldn't help but take advantage of the situation. Seeing as I wasn't sure whether I would find you at the Chantry, the museum, or your haven, it felt best to take advantage.
Rebecca gives a nod. I understand.
Might I ask what brings you to the East End?
After a moment's pause in consideration, Rebecca says, myself, my brother, and Mr. Holborn Harry's child have been called upon to look into this dreadful Ripper business. I've just come back from endeavoring to venture to one of the scenes of the crime.
I didn't by chance just miss your brother, did I?
No, he did not join us tonight. I believe you may be able to find him at the Chantry, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh no, I intend to seek him out tomorrow evening. First, I have some business to resolve at the British Museum. I had only been curious. You should be cautious in Whitechapel at the moment, not just because of this Ripper business and the extreme dangers which that presents. Maybe not physically, but by way of the Masquerade, being so tenuous. Shall we call it that? Tenuous? Precarious? Let's call it precarious. You should be cautious, particularly you and your brother. As you know, our Lord and Protector Prince Mithras is not favorable towards our clan, and it would seem that there is a temple of sorts active in Whitechapel.
Rebecca raises a brow at that. Her head slightly looks up a little so that her eyes are slightly more visible, the silver fluidity in them. Do you know what manner of temple? Is that what brings yourself to Whitechapel?
Something I had begun to suspect, but now I am investigating properly. Admittedly, with the most unlikely of bedfellows. That's why I caution. I wish to investigate it before its activities are pinned on Clan Tremere, and to, frankly, I have no taste of I have no taste for the sordid business that they get up to. I wish to put a stop to it.
Might I ask what manner of business they involve themselves in?
Gray holds up a finger. Before that, an unfortunate formality. As apprentice of the Sixth Circle, I do invoke that you would not speak of this business with any save Bainbridge should he ask.
Rebecca nods her head, respectfully. Of course, Miss Gray.
With that, Gray lowers her hand back into her lap, jostling slightly as the wheels of the carriage strike a somewhat loose paved stone. It is a cult that seems to revolve itself around prostitution and drug fare. This evening, however, I had begun to discover a bit more. It is very female-centric, this cult, with a great deal of homage given to the Egyptian goddesses. Strictly Egyptian goddesses. Considering my destination, she gestures over Rebecca's shoulder to the driver, with palm up yet index finger pointing. I am sure you can gather why it is I'm going there.
Rebecca nods, and for a moment turns her head to look out the window of the carriage, before she looks back. There is something that has recently come to my attention, though I am not certain how connected it may be to your situation. But there are snakes slithering the dark recesses of London.
Sedites. You're not the first to bring up the suggestion. I understand perfectly well the practice of calling a spade, but just because it happens to involve cults in Egyptian mythology, I am reluctant to immediately associate it with the followers of Sutek. That is why I am going to speak with Wildem.
though I do not dismiss the idea. After all, this is London. There is an obsession with Egypt and Cairo and the like of late. If every single person who happened to own a bauble born out of Egypt was a Setite, we'd be in grave straits indeed.
I do understand your hesitance to not jump to conclusions. The need for more thorough investigation, certainly. However, there is a Setite within London, and perhaps you may or may not be more aware than I, that he goes by the name Mr. Ferguson.
Gray puts a hand over her chest. Her head pulled slightly aback, as though she herself is taken aback. Ferguson, a follower of Set. That is troublesome. Frankly, I was not aware. He had reached out to me through an intermediary, suggesting I associate myself with a branch of the Freemasons. I wasn't considering it, but my associate, however, does seem to have gone to see them, and now I can't help but be worried. More distressing, in this part I'm trusting you, is Elizabeth Gray.
Rebecca was silent for a moment. Do you trust her in this endeavor?
I do, and for the record, I have made a promise that I would not in any way act against her in this, unless need arise. After the fact, should the need be such, what will happen will happen. But as of the moment, our interests align. In fact, we may be able to use this should Ferguson really be a follower of Set. How was it you came by this information? Do you have evidence?
During my investigations, I had cast a ritual to scry upon someone, and saw Mr. Ferguson at one of the Freemason gatherings. I saw clearly his glowing serpentine eyes, which he had used to lure away one of those gathered who was watching him too intently.
Unfortunately, that would not be enough evidence to bring before Lady Parr or Sir Halesworth.
Rebecca nods in agreement.
Gray, meanwhile, taps her chin. It may also be that he is not a Setite. It may be, in fact, that he is merely a member of their temple, their cult.
I suppose that possibility cannot be ruled out.
Tell me now, if I was to interfere with Ferguson in any way, would that compromise anything of which you are doing?
I fear that it very well might. My brothers and my investigation to the Ripper, we've uncovered some disturbing truths that we wish to speak to Dr. Bainbridge about soon enough. But we're still looking into the matter and Mr. Ferguson.
Gray holds up her hand, motioning Rebecca to stop. That's all you need to tell me. I understand who it is that has given you this task. There's no need for you to jeopardize yourself. I will refrain from involving myself in any inquiry or disruption into Ferguson for the time being. I will continue to investigate the temple within Whitechapel on my own. However, I may require your brother's familiarity with Egypt and the Egyptian language, if you can spare him for a little time.
Becca gives a nod.
There is something else I will need from you, Miss Thorne. I am aware that you have the employ or means of which to employ the unseen dead. Could you have one monitor Elizabeth Gray for me? I will be meeting her back at that inn where I entered your carriage tomorrow evening. If your spirits could await us there and then follow the other woman?
I think I can do that for you, Miss Gray.
You have my thanks.
You had said that Ferguson had reached out to you through an intermediary. Might I ask regarding what?
As I said, an invitation was extended for me to join the Freemasons. I lacked any interest, thus I did not.
Is there anything that you know of him apart from his connection to the Freemasons?
Very little, I'm afraid. Although now I wish I knew more, or that I had bothered to learn more.
I merely fear that your new associate may be tracked back to the clan.
I'll handle her. If anything should run afoul, you may be assured that I will not drag you into it. I shall let Bainbridge know that it was me who will handle the situation. This as well being independent of you and your investigation on the behalf of Lady Anne.
Rebecca gives a nod.
That said, I'll have some more choice words with your brother. I may even have to request the temporary loan of some of his... Oh, what were the name of them? The Lockmen?
That would be correct.
Well, that being that, I do hope you have a good evening, Miss Thorne. My apologies for intruding on your carriage.
Not at all. I'm glad that our paths crossed this evening. And if I might inquire on an unrelated matter, have you heard of the Arcanum?
The instant Rebecca asks that question, Gray pauses, momentarily, before, after a moment, she speaks again, choosing her words with care. The Arcanum. Yes, I've heard of them. They were founded by members of the Rising Day, in fact. I believe they walked off with a large number of the Society's gifts, as well as their more gifted members. At least those who weren't merely there to drink and play fancy.
I see. Times like this, I wonder whether or not I should have involved myself more with the socializing of the Society. Early the next evening, Rebecca Thorne is in her haven, making her way into the living room. This room is the largest in all the house, with dark green walls. And walking in, the left side is almost entirely covered in bookshelves, filled with books, the occasional painting on the walls. The center of the left wall being taken up by a fireplace. And in front of it, a round wooden table, on either side of which there are 2 green sofas with cushions, and an armchair off to the side. In one of the corners, there is a large grand piano. And the room is interspersed with carpets, tables, and chairs, usually each having a little stack of books on them that Rebecca has yet to put away from reading.
Sat on one of the couches that he purchased for Rebecca as a gift, though she partially suspects, no doubt. It's also because he didn't like how the other ones felt. Alexander Charnock is sat, hunched over in a very, perhaps, uncivilized fashion, fidgeting with a large bouquet of flowers, arranging them. The bright colors predominantly being purples and pinks, but also several whites. He's arranged the agapanthus, strawberry, peony, eastern lily, lupins, and all around the edge pink roses, the precise number of 11. It is a lovely bouquet. For his part, he wears very little. A white shirt, several of the buttons left undone, until it's practically hanging off of him. A loose piece of cloth, if nothing else. His trousers still fixed firmly to him, though he is barefoot. You've noticed that a lot about him. Sometimes you've even seen him trace the lines of your rugs with his toes. He does have quite a taste for fine things. On more than one occasion, while in public or the opera, you've seen him order wine just so he can enjoy the smell. He is a creature of sensation, a creature which doesn't hesitate or withhold his passions. His long mane of blonde hair, somewhat messy, coming a bit undone. His hair is pulled back now, in something becoming a braid down his back, though slightly fallen apart. Though some of the hair falls over the sides of his head, clouding where his ears are, a few loose strands in his face that he doesn't seem to notice, so intent is he on arranging the bouquet, snipping off the little leaves that don't quite fit into place and settling them very neatly off to one side.
Rebecca would be wearing, at least for the moment, a tea gown, the bonnet, the bodice white, and the skirt a darker blue colour. But she would, coming into the room with a light step, make her way over to where Alexander is sat, and around the back of the sofa, before placing a hand on his shoulder, and with the other hand pulling back one of the loose strands of his hair that has covered his face.
Leaning backwards against the sofa, Charnock lifts his head up to look at her, his smile broad. You can faintly see the white teeth past his lips, which are only very faintly pink due to his uninhibited flesh.
At this time of night, Rebecca wouldn't yet put on any sort of hat, so her swirling silver eyes would be very much visible as she looks down at him with a genuine smile.
He pulls his eyes away from her for only a moment. Reaching down, he scoops up in his left hand the leaves he's been snipping off, all still fresh and smelling of the rich floral scent, which comes from the pot in the center, where he has arranged the bouquet in a thin vase, so they puff outward, much like the sleeves he favors in wearing. Lifting the vase in his right hand, delicately between his fingers, he turns towards Rebecca, the left hand moving behind his back. He presents the bouquet in a bow towards her, holding it out gently, so faintly that if she were to push them aside, they would slip from the tips of his fingers, and vase and all would crash to the floor.
Rebecca reaches out for it, taking it delicately, as to not disturb his arrangement of the flowers.
At once as she takes them, his right hand darts to the corner of the sofa, snatching up a lace-covered book, a ribbon of silk wrapping around it. Lifting both his hands high above her head, he moves around behind her, wrapping his arms around her midriff, the left hand against her belly, the right just above it, as he rests his chin on her shoulder. For a moment, she even might believe she hears a self-satisfied purr coming from him, as his voice begins to utter out, "Do you like it?"
I love them. Such a pleasant surprise. So beautiful, and beautifully done, my dear Alexander.
Alexander moves his cheek, pressed against the corner of hers. You can feel the muscles in his jaw move as he smiles. You can feel his hands moving. If you were still mortal, you might even feel ticklish. You can hear the pages of the book turning, forcing you to look to the flowers to see properly as he's shifting through the pages, his middle finger turning the pages with a long, well-manicured finger, until he stops, resting it in the middle of 2 pages. It is a book on the language of flowers, and he is showing her the meaning of the pink roses and its significance and number. Just as you begin to read the words, he lifts his left hand and thrusts upward, throwing out the leaves he snipped off, allowing them to shower gently over the 2 of you. As you look to the book, the meaning of the roses are evident. As pink roses have very few meanings, however, in a romantic sense, you can note exactly where his fingernail points to. They represent a beautiful, fresh love, pureness of emotion, and 11 promises of love that will last forever.
Rebecca's smile would widen. No doubt if she was still mortal, she might even be blushing. But as she reads the words, she says, "I admit you have rendered me rather speechless."
He gives a very delicate, gentle kiss to the nape of her neck, almost a brushing of his lips before he closes the book. The flowers also have another meaning. A new word I learned from an acquaintanceship in Limehouse. If you take the capital of each of the flowers' names in the native tongue of those people, it spells "I love you."
Rebecca begins to turn, pulling away slowly.
The moment she begins to do so, he says the word that those flowers are meant to spell out. Kiku, and lets her go as simple as that.
Rebecca would go and very delicately place the flowers, the vase, on the piano. And with a slight smile on her face, as she reaches out to brush her fingertips across those roses. I think a flower's appeal is in its contradictions, so delicate in form, yet strong in fragrance, so small in size, yet great in beauty, so short in life, yet long in effect. She then briefly looks out the window. With all my time spent amongst the dead and the withering, tends to make one appreciate its contrasts. Life so fragile, and love, she looks back to Alexander, so beautiful. The flowers are beautiful, but there is only one rose that captivates me so, that I love so.
His right hand on the arm of the sofa, he braces his waist against it as his ankles cross. With love water is enough. Without love, food doesn't satisfy. Coming closer, he brings up his right hand to sweep the back of his knuckles across her cheek, his thumb and index finger clasping her chin as he closes the distance. Were it that I've always been the rose in your eyes? He pauses a moment, offering a mischievous smirk, like a devilish imp. And yet you insist on driving me to the most damnable of places. You won't stop until my appreciation of the dead is the same as my appreciation of the theater. He chuckles. The things I let you do to me.
He returns a very slight bit of her own cheeky smile. Yeah, the cemetery. The setting may seem an unusually grim and even ghoulish locale, but there is so much bound together in one place.
Then that would explain your eyes. The Chinese say the Milky Way is a luminous river. They call it the River of Heaven. Looking into her eyes, he smiles. The silver stream. So when I hold you in my hands, I am holding the river of heaven in my hands. Bet you God didn't think of that, did he? Before she can say anything further, he pulls away from her to rest his hips against the piano, half leaning over it, resting his weight against it. He brings his hand up to free her hair so it falls longly, tracing his fingers through it. Do you have any plans for this evening?
There is a meeting that I need to attend later tonight, as well as a meeting with my brother. She looks out the window for a moment and says, I regret that I'm so often taken from you. And looking back says, we must do something to make up for that lost time.
Leaning forward, he pulls at the edge of her robe, revealing her shoulder, which he grazes with his fangs against. Not painfully, just scraping lightly with the edge of his fang, before kissing this very same spot. We should hunt together before you go. Unless you have something else in mind, my dear. I find that far too much of your time is taken by your clan.
My closeness with my clan is a benefit, especially considering our position in the city. But I don't wish to speak of that this evening. And I would love to go out on the night feeding with you before I depart.
He puts 2 fingers over her lips to silence her. Do you know what your problem is, my dear? It's that if I were to turn you into the stars and form a constellation of your image, your face will make the heavens so beautiful I will fall in love with the night and forget about the garish sun. I don't feel like sharing. I'm selfish and greedy. I take what I want. And this evening I want you. Playfully, he tugs at her sleeve a bit more. Forget your clan. He pulls his hand from her lips, giving them a quick strum before pulling it away completely. Come out on the night with me.
Rebecca brings her hand up to brush back his hair and stroke his cheek. Spare me but an hour, and I am yours the entire night.
And what is it you plan to do with this hour, my love? Entertain your brother? Very well. 1 hour. I'll wait that long. Make me wait any longer and I'll look for you myself. I know the places where you like to hide, love. I can find you.
She brings up a hand to press her fingertips to his lips and give him a kiss on the cheek. No more than an hour.
He smiles against her fingers, nipping at them with his teeth. I'm not convinced yet. You'll have to repeat that. He smiles, clearly fishing for another kiss.
Rebecca gives a little bit of a smirk before she presses her lips to his.
He returns the kiss in full, his hands seeking out her hips as he pulls her against him. But he doesn't go beyond that. He pulls away respectfully and lifts up his hands to cup her cheeks, his forehead pressing against her own. He smiles, looking into her eyes, watching the swirling silver. Times like this, I could throw out all the etiquette in the world. What a shame that I've wasted so much of my life and my unlife on petty loves. I think I have just the thing for us now. There is some gentry going to be having a ball. Let's attend. Wear your finest. I want to show you off. He puts a finger over her lips. I know you well, love. Don't worry, not just a ball. Everyone in attendance is a member of the Golden Dawn, and a few other societies. I'd figure, while you captivate them with your smiles, maybe I find something that would please you more than flowers. He pulls his finger away.
You know me too well.
Better than you know me most nights. And for that I'm grateful. Otherwise, you'd see what a wretch I am.
I suppose we test that one night, and I prove you wrong.
At that, he steps away, his face actually serious. I would rather not. I am an unwilling devil, and I'm sick of crying like some vagrant child that I want to go home. I've accepted what I am. He holds up his hands in a grand pose. I am the vampire Alexander Charnock. For I will never neglect what I am. I have accepted it fully. And when the sun rises and my beast is screaming for security, it's my secret music. Hell's Bells Premium, telling me it's time to retreat from the dawn. He looks away. Ignore me. Melancholy has invaded my mind.
I'm afraid it's quite impossible to ignore you, my dear.
More's the pity, more's the pleasure. I could not do with being ignored. I've been ignored by enough of those who claim to love me. I don't think I could tolerate it again. He pauses and looks to her. Did you ever know love when you were alive?
As you might imagine, study had before secluded me from the intercourse of others and rendered me quite unsocial.
I might have assumed as much. He throws up a hand. Not that I can complain. Just means I get you all the more to myself. And that is not something I am willing to share lightly. Your brother is lucky I haven't strapped you to my back and pull you off with me somewhere far to the east, where his ships can't find us. And let them find us. I'll sink every one of them. I'll gouge out the eyes of any mortal man who sees your eyes and screams. I don't care. I've worked too hard for a love of my own. I don't plan to let it go. And for the record, he holds up a hand, I never knew love either. I had parents, and they were good parents. My father was busy. My mother... she made mistakes. Caused a rift in the family. And when finally I inherited the business, it was after joining my father's enterprise. So I might spend more time with him. So I might be closer with the man who sired me, and yet he died. Seems that was all he could take of me. Walking away, he swings his hand out and turns to her. One thing you need never worry about is that I will ask your hand in marriage. Once was torturous enough. Marriage does nothing but sour. There is a reason why going without something makes it all the fresher when you receive it again. It is why when I come here after not seeing you for 2 or 3 nights, I can't take my hands off you. I would never want that to change. Marriage brings the despair which comes from familiarity. That's why I never want you to doubt my affections.
And I don't think I ever shall.
He smiles at that and thrusts up a finger. 1 hour, or I will come find you, my love. I don't care if I terrify the ministers. I'll find you. Starting with that ghoul down at St. Michael's Church. If you don't think I'll interrupt a midnight mass to ask questions, you're sorely mistaken, my dear. It'll be entertaining, if nothing else. Hopefully God will forgive me my intrusions. And if you're with your brother, it'll be a scandal that'll make his cheeks pink. And if you're with your clan, well, I'm not afraid of Bainbridge. That's for sure. And yes, you're loyal to your clan, yes, he waves his hand dismissively. But one of these nights, I'm going to find a way to take you away from them, my dear. Oh, don't worry. I'm quite grateful to your clan. They provide you with the support you need, and they protect you when I am not there. For that, I am grateful. Now run along and go tend your business, before I lose my patience and choose to take you away with me now for a lovely stroll in the cemetery. A bit of cello to entertain the dead souls there. You'll have to tell me their reactions. And then off to the ball.
Rebecca chuckles. I best be off then. She turns to move for the door.
Charnock, in the meanwhile, throws himself back onto her couch, quite unceremoniously, his right arm and left leg hanging off the edge as he drapes his left arm over his eyes, his left foot dangling on the back of the couch. He's a mess. And yet, as she begins to leave the room, she can snatch a glance from him. He's leaned over so he can play with the flowers that have fallen on the floor, the leaves he threw up, and such a spectacle over them as she took the bouquet. And then he starts tracing the lines of the rug. She has an hour, and she better have no doubts he will come looking for her after that.
The door closing behind you, you find that you are already alone in the room with Mr. Harker, who has arrived not long ago by cab, sent by you. He didn't waste much of any time immediately departing from the carriage and making his way to the room that was waiting for him. You find him sat at a table by the window. A small cup in front of him with tea. He looks out of the window, waiting. The room is fairly small by comparison to the Swan, but it is comfortable and quite nice. The furnishings are new. The walls freshly pressed with new wallpaper. The rugs freshly cleaned. All of the utensils and other dishware you would use are also quite new. And the chandelier hanging from above provides a comfortable, warm ambiance in the room. As the door is clicked to a close behind you on well-oiled hinges, you have a brief moment. As you can see, he lifts his head from his thoughts from looking out the window.
I want to briefly check the watch on my chatelaine just to see how much time I have before I am due to return.
Well, the pub is luckily very close to where you live. In fact, it's practically not even a 5-minute walk. So, you'll have a better part of an hour.
Okay. I turn to look at Mr. Harkham. Eyes somewhat concealed by the hat. As I say, good evening, Mr. Harker. And do please forgive my last-minute change in choice of locale.
Now that his eyes are trained on you, he stands as you have entered, inclines his upper body slightly towards you. It's no trouble, really. I assumed there would be a reason for it. So don't feel the need to apologize. It's perfectly fine. I do appreciate the choice of venue. I don't think I've been up to Highgate in a while.
Out of character, firstly, could I just attempt to read and gauge his general mood?
Perception and empathy. You get the impression he is dreadfully bored. With a very polite smile, he moves to the side of the table, pulling out your chair and gesturing for you to take a seat.
I move to the seat, giving a very brief curtsy to Mr. Harker before taking.
He slides your seat in and moves back to his own, throwing out the tails of his somewhat shabby coat as he sits back down in it and scoots forward a little. Just like last time, he does look a bit on the shabby side. The suit he's wearing, though clearly expensive, is ill-fitting and unkempt. His eyes a bit puffy. It's evident that he has given minimal effort to his appearance. He's also very pale. Not like you, but pale in the nature of mortals who don't get enough natural light. As you employ the blush of life, providing a bit of ruddiness to your undead flesh and a bit of warmth to your hands, you note that he pushes a teacup before you, already filled with tea, still hot, a bit of steam rising from it. Smells quite nice. You take a moment. You've smelled it before at Bainbridge's Haven, though you can't identify it. You're not as much of an aficionado as the regent would be. He sits across from you and smiles, polite. I hope you don't mind my forwardness. He gestures to the tea. Your hands were very cold. You said you were interested in what was going on in Whitechapel, not the Ripper business, I'd imagine. Not with the lack of care with which you approached the crime scene. May I inquire as to your interest?
I was curious if there was any merit to the speculation of unnatural involvement with others, or perhaps even ritual sacrifice. But what of your purpose in Whitechapel the prior evening? You were perhaps just as out of place as I was. I always thought your attire too fine.
Charisma and expression. Takes a moment, as though he's considering your words with the utmost care, before he finally responds. Much the same. On behalf of the party of which I am involved, I was inquiring into the matter. I thought there might be a common link into some of that of which we have been investigating.
Yes, I do remember last night you mentioned that recent events had taken your interest.
Not for any of the Ripper killings particularly. In fact, might I ask who it is that you represent?
The Hermetic Order of Dawn, previously Rising Day. I believe you may be acquainted.
I am, as I was a member. Though I must remark that it is, remarkable to see a woman of learning permitted within the fraternity. A sign of social change. He takes a sip of his tea and gestures to yours. Do you find it to your liking? I made the choice while I waited.
Rebecca would say that she's afraid she has an upcoming engagement for which she would not think to drink or eat anything prior to it. But
Manipulation subterfuge. He stares for a moment before nodding in acquiescence. My sincere apology. I hadn't meant to be rude. You seemed cold when you arrived.
Out of character, can I try and read him again?
You get the impression he's dissatisfied.
For God's sake.
The Golden Dawn might dismiss this. Though, as you clearly know so much of me, you must know then my affiliation. We are not so quick to squander supernatural theory. We believed, particularly myself, that the Ripper killings may be in connection, a common link, to a series of attacks being perpetrated on a number of students and lecturers, some publishers of ideological pamphlets. Our interest was piqued, though I have discerned that there is no connection between the Ripper and these attacks. It was put forward by some of our members the idea that this mysterious attacker is taking some sustenance from his victim. Though we were at a loss as to exactly what, my current theory is that their superior mind must be a factor.
And I assume you originally thought the Ripper somehow connected because of his removal of organs from his victims.
No, not at all. Though they were distinctive and apparently at random, there is more common links between the Ripper killings than this mysterious attacker. The brutal nature being one, the other being the prostitution. Though some of the prostitutes were educated.
Educated.
Of moderate learning. That was what made us believe there may be a common link, for perhaps another such attacker that feeds on a different breed of individual with very distinct characteristics linking them, some of which may not even be physical. I've concluded that they are not the same, and this Ripper not to be drawing sustenance in any similar fashion. This is done in a very ritualistic manner. It is mundane, if I'm frank.
I concluded much the same of the Ripper, but what manner of different breed of individual does he believe this other attacker might be?
Charisma and expression. For one, here is what we know. They only strike when the sun is absent. 2, they have a very particular manner of prey, which they draw sustenance from. In this case, peoples of higher learning. Thirdly, they must draw this sustenance in a way that is not perceivable. Fourthly, they are very covert to the ordinary observer, suggesting this is behavioral, be that of the individual or perhaps as a collective rule of similar kinds. Unfortunately, when looking upon the evidence, we have concluded that it may be a vampire. Do you believe in the existence of such creatures?
Rebecca raises an eyebrow at that before saying, I do not ever remember to have trembled at a tale of superstition or to have feared the apparition of a spirit. Darkness had no effect upon my fancy, and the churchyard, she says, glancing over the cemetery was not far, was to me merely the receptacle of the wolf, which from being the seat of beauty and strength had become food for the wolf.
Inclining forward, he has a faint smile. Forgive my forwardness. May I inquire if you are familiar with a gentleman? He pauses momentarily. You can see his knee bouncing as though he's a puppy with a tail that needs to wag. Who wears ill-fitted suits, curly dark hair, traces of a beard, and gray eyes. You realize immediately whom he's speaking of. And it doesn't... He's speaking of Reginald Moore, the Brujah Primogen.
Oh no.
At once you see him lean forward. Is he a colleague of yours? I mean no ill intent. I bear no malice to the man. I'm more curious to speak to him if you could arrange such an interview.
Can I read him again?
Perception and empathy. You have this man's utter attention at full. He is fascinated with you and the subject. You can see the gleam of curiosity in his eyes and the sharp intellect working furiously. Yet he seems to have absolutely no fear of the situation he's in. He is in a private room with something he has identified as possibly either acquainted to or maybe a vampire themselves. You're not sure if he's quite aware of what you are yet. And he's completely unafraid. Either because he's a moron, an idiot, a bumbling fool, or he doesn't know he should be.
This fucking guy. Oh dear, oh dear. Mr. Harker, if I may ask, What would you want to discuss with this person that you described?
Everything. For instance, what sustenance is it that he draws from these victims? Why them? Is it necessity for such a peculiar breed of man or woman? Or is it preference? How does he guise himself in the manner so human? It would be a shorter list to say what I'm not interested in asking this individual. Their very existence fascinates.
Rebecca brings her hand to hold her own, feeling the tea inside, turning the cup so slightly, playing with it as she thinks, before she finally asks Mr. Harker, "In my time in the Golden Dawn, I found myself enamored. What possible secrets and mysteries might exist? How far do you believe that you are willing to go to unearth mysteries that you are going into?"
I have no fears of pursuing my interests wherever they may take me. He holds up a hand. After all, the fear of the supernatural is nothing more than a remnant of superstition of primitive peoples.
Prick her finger with the sharpened pencil of her chatelaine while her other hand remains under the table before she moves up closer to the window to look out of it back to him as she asks him, "What credence, if any, do you give to those such stories of Shelley's Frankenstein, Stevenson's strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or even Lefano's Carmilla? Were those creatures not dangerous, do you think, Mr. Hawk?" As she, with her back turned to him, lets some of the blood from her pricked finger drip into the cup of tea.
Charisma and subterfuge, or stealth.
I will go with subterfuge.
You maintain his attentions wholeheartedly for the most part. Putting a bit of poison in the water. As you ask your questions, he turns in his seat to look at you more fully. Just as with Christianity, I miss. Once scrutinized by the rational mind, it doesn't hold much water. These fanciful stories written by authors are just that. They are stories born of superstitious minds that do not approach these things with any real knowledge or rationality. It is fanciful. It is for artistic sake. But there is no science to these works. That is why there is nothing to fear of them. That is why those creatures are dangerous merely in fiction. All of a sudden, you hear the intrusion of another sound. You are very much a 19th century man, Miss Docker. As though appeared Charnock stands in the center of the table, not on it, but on the other side of it, closest to the door.
It has not been now, has it?
No. Harker back in his seat, looking up at the man, without fear but wonder at his sudden appearance. Charnock looking at him after exchanging with you a mischievous smirk. Within Highgate, as the cool breeze brushes through the surrounding leaves, as you move your way to one of the mausoleums, you know from experience tends to be on the less occupied side of things. No one watching you but that of statues of the angels. One laid beside you as you pass it. A few leaves rustling as they brush over the sleeping angel statue. It's very quiet here. Your footsteps clack with a particular resonance on the stones as you walk to the mausoleum and pull the iron wrought door open with a loud creak that releases a smell of rust from the bars. A bit of scraped stone falls like drizzle of rain from where it scrapes. As you step inside, a distinct smell of mold, moss, and old death linger in the air. With your papers in one hand, your walking cane in the other, do you prepare anything for summoning your spirit, keeping in mind that, naturally, as someone who practices the Horned Moon Eternal, the rituals tend to involve architectural items, agricultural, sheaves of wheat, scythes, sickles, ox or horse blood, as well as organistic sexual.
I will have procured the items ahead of time. I will, of course, grab some grain and the blood of a horse and a few farming implements. I'm going to I would disrobe while eating the freshly procured heart of the horse, and then bathing in its blood. I will pour it over myself and do the deed.
Roll charisma and occult. As the blood streaks down from your hair, wetting it, pooling somewhat in the center to rush all down each side of your head, covering your chest, both from cold and sexual stimulation, your nipples hardened. As by the time it begins to reach, dripping from your chest to your toes, as you stroke your phallus, you can feel the rising pressure in your organ as it swells. You can feel the wind around you beginning to move at odd angles, slowly in a vortex emanating from the center of the room. As you beat your meat, the blood stricken down you, the grains freshly catching between your teeth as you swallow them. You hear a dreadful groaning as now the room's dust and filth scatters, swirling in the air, painting you with bits of grave earth and dust, so that parts of your flesh where the blood trickled now are grayed or slightly bluish brown. your hair a matted mess, as you can see in the center, the spirits forming this mostly apparitional thing that begins to slowly take shape. It howls, reverberating on the inside. You can hear in your mind an immediate voice and pressure, yet it does not speak so clearly in words, yet you can feel from its impression that it leaves on your mind, as though it were clearly asking, "How dare you summon me? What do you want?" Seems they are not exactly friendly.
I take note of the ritual that I use, and perhaps I will make slight adjustments to it to avoid summoning this one in the future. Smiling, I'll look at the spirit creature. I'll look at the apparition and say, I've summoned you here for a bit of information and perhaps help with acquiring something. I've been asked to acquire a book of great occult knowledge from New Cavendish on the Wimble Street.
Really quickly, give me a strength and athletics roll, please. As I said, you managed to summon the thing, but it is a bit hostile. With a sudden gust of wind, you are shoved back, your hands slapping against the walls wetly. As you clutch yourself standing, the spirit seems disturbed that you don't go flying out the fucking door. I care not for your motivations.
Then you will tell me the current residence, and I will send you back once my task has been completed, or I will leave you here until the spell dissipates.
The bowl in which you kept the horse's blood whips up into the air, shattering against your head at the beside the wall. You're unhurt, but you get the message. Fuck you.
What do you know of the man who resides at the location?
Nothing. I know nothing of any of your mortal petty concerns.
Fine. You will go to the street and you will retrieve the book that I seek. You will bring me the fragments of Zekri's diary.
Charisma and intimidation. You note that the wind dies down, and yet you can hear the wind of the room. It almost sounds like it's dragging against the wall. You can see gusts of dust and gathered dirt and mold scraping themselves backwards away from you, as though it's clawing the walls with the very air before it ceases. And in a sudden, as though the air is sucked into place, the spirit remains. I will do this service. wiping your hand of your sexual fluids. Well, you can feel the spirit as it sort of moves around you, the air around you sweeping up, causing your hair, the wetten, to rise and fall back against the nape of your neck as it moves out from the mausoleum. With that, your task is done. At least in this regard.
Well, since I have a little bit of time, I will start working on a letter for the Mr. Thorn. Updating him on my progress, that I have found possibly the solution, though I will need to talk to him in person. And I believe that's all I will be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything going on about, or is it just me at the moment?
Well, you're waiting for him to return. And, though it does take a slight bit of time, he does seem to return within about 2 hours. A little longer than you expect. The sudden bursting gust of wind which cleanses the room once again, though admittedly gets more shit in your hair that you're going to have to comb clean out when you get out of here. The journal of which you wanted is thrust across the room, though not very hardly. It does hit your chest, but yet it is done so not so much in such a hostility as much as, here you go, throw you the thing. As you clutch it to your chest, the room has a sudden coolness to it, as though there was a constant torrent of air mildly pushing through the room, keeping it cool, the air moving and fresh, though it does carry this growing scent of rotted egg.
I will grasp the book and look up. Is the spirit still there?
Yes.
I look up at the creature, spirit. I look up at it and say, I thank you for this service. Did you encounter any trouble while trying to retrieve it?
None save the limitations of human.
I give it a nod, and I will do the banishing or dismissing action, whatever I have to.
It's as simple as a mental command. The spirit, in a sudden, as though the air is being sucked to its position, there is suddenly a as the iron wrought door creaks open on its rusted hinges before you are most notably alone. And on a very quick observation of the thing in your hands, it is in fact a summoning ritual for a powerful spirit, a meld.
I'll get up and quickly make my way back to back to my house. Do I know anything of the spirit's nature? Probably gonna have to read through the book, though, aren't I?
No, you don't know anything about this spirit's nature. Though it is a very powerful spirit. This ritual being entirely devoted to its summoning.
Well then, I guess I will hold this close to my chest or somewhere on my person and make it quickly back to my place where I can look at it in better light.
Common sense. Maybe clean yourself up a bit before getting too far ahead. Last thing you need is someone to see you so questionably.
Yeah, I probably should. I will wash up and then start looking at look over the book or the pieces of the diary. It's deep into the night, isn't it? No one should be watching.
No one should be watching.
Is there anyone between me and the cemetery at the moment? Sorry, the cemetery and the house.
Well, the thing is the church is connected to the massive cemetery, so it's not very hard to get from one to the other unseen.
Okay, then I will make the trek across.
And I assume descend to your room, yes?
Correct. What language is this written in? Is it English?
It is English. Well translated, though it is distinctly of an American English, not the proper British. Or even the somewhat differently pronounced and occasionally worded Irish English.
What does this ritual entail from just reading it over?
For one, human sacrifice. A great deal of energy will be needed, so preferably a great deal of sex, as that is necessary for the ritual. The sacrifice will need to be committed with an agricultural tool which has claimed many lives of livestock before, preferably one that's rusted.
Okay, so I need a nun. I need some sort of farming implement that has been used to kill multiple creatures. I'll probably need a goat. Or some animal.
Bestiality could work.
And then I need to kill the nun. Does the scrap say anything else?
Not particularly. But yes, we will conclude things there for this evening, I suppose.